Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the M3 Market Update. My name is Melody Wright, and I do this show to give you context about the information we're getting out there on the residential and commercial real estate market against the backdrop of our global macroeconomy, because these two things do not live in isolation. I try here to give you a view of the micro and the macro. Of course, I can't look at every county in the U.S. We have over 3,000 counties, and I can't give you every macro fact either. But when I don't have the information, I'm going to steer you in the right direction. So welcome back. It's been still a little crazy for me. I'm hanging on by a thread, but today is a bit better, getting into some routine here as we've consolidated households and done this huge move, which has just been a little crazy, but feeling more like myself today, and hoping that as things settle, I can bring you more information on a more regular basis. So what do I want to talk to you about today? There is a lot going on, as I used to say all the time, and I think I'm about to start saying it all the time again, but there is a lot going on. And I think the biggest surprise for us this week might be in how hot home sales were in February. So I did the review of my 80 cities. I use Redfin for my home sale information just because they make it available. So essentially, though, when looking at my 80 cities, there was a surprising amount of increases month over month and year over year for sales. In fact, so year over year, about a 4.71% increase year over year and a 19.05% increase month over month. I meant to check what estimates were out there. We're going to get existing home sales probably tomorrow. So we'll be able to check and see how my cities do in comparison. So what's interesting and confusing at the same time is that Redfin tracks both new and existing homes because they use a lot of county data. We talked about that a little bit in the last show. And so when looking at the correlation, I have to look at both new and existing together to see how my cities are tracking. So I don't have a ton of data to do, 30 months of correlation, but I have enough data now to start doing correlation so we can start making projections of where we think that sales are going to come in. California was just hot. I mean, it just year over year, and yes, California was in the gutter last year, so any sort of increase in activity is going to have a bigger impact for those year over year numbers, but it was on the move. And we saw median prices come up as well. Now, for everyone that's like, oh no, here we go, the trend up again. Well, I kind of think we're probably going to see a little bit of what we saw last year, which is this spring is going to be very noisy and people are going to get super excited. But then I think, and they may not even get super excited in the press because I think most everybody are looking in the MLS right now. They're looking at what's happening in March, and this is really slowed down. So that brings me to why do I think that sales increase? Well, you got to think about interest rates where they were 45 to 60 days ago, because if you're getting a mortgage, it can take up to 60 days to close, sometimes longer. But that 45 to 60 day range is a good range to think about. And so if you look back to that time period, we didn't really start to see those rates go crazy to the upside until mid-February. And so we've still got some of that in the pipeline for when rates decrease. Now, what's interesting, we've been tracking mortgage applications, and those have been down year over year. So I think we're going to see a lot of cash sales. And I think that this could be, as I was saying, whenever you talk about the rates, I think that rates brought out sellers as well as buyers, and probably more sellers. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, I think there probably have been some more all cash purchases that have been happening in that private note space as investors who kind of, they get in these Facebook groups, they're working together to offload some of these properties. And I think that that's also keeping prices a little high. And then, of course, we have the builders who are just coming out strong. They have to unload that inventory, and they're going to do whatever it takes. A lot of folks were surprised when Lennar talked about that lower home price. and pivoting to affordable housing. We've called that, right? So we've been talking about that for some time, but they're going to have to pivot real hard to affordable housing, and there's going to be some pain along the way. But they're acknowledging that lower home price. Now, I kind of see maybe the next couple of months, we see higher home prices because the people that are transacting can afford it. But still, I think once we get past the spring season, everything's going to start to clear up again. And even in talking to people earlier today who have access to MLS, March is looking drastically different from February. And by the way, February, because of those lower mortgage applications, was a bit surprising to me as well, just to see that much activity in California. But when you look at the cities that really saw the increases, I think a lot of it has to do with the Nvidia mania, as well as I have a theory on California and Florida. Now, this is something I'll be diving into, but I shared this on X Twitter today. It was an article about Gucci and their negative results because of the pullback in Chinese consumption. So what I shared out there on X Twitter was, what if the Chinese start to or need to start selling these excess properties they have here in the U.S. So there's a lot of foreign ownership in our country. A lot of it people think is related to money laundering. And, people are going to say, well, they're not going to take that cash back to China. They sure aren't. A lot of them aren't. The private citizens that are doing this aren't going to take that cash back to China. But these super prime, which we learned, the Chinese super prime in the SVB Silicon Valley Bank incident, they know how to hide money. And a lot of that money was saved during that, the saving of SVB. And so they'll figure out how to extract this money. A lot of people talk about it being already laundered and now it's clean. Who knows? But based on conversations I've had, I had someone tell me an example down in Orlando that the only people it's a realtor contacting them to list are the Chinese. So there's a lot going on in terms of global tensions. And this is a prime case of macro meeting micro, where we've got these escalating global tensions. At the same time, we have affordability issues here. At the same time, we have these increased home prices. So if I'm the Chinese, I think this could be both state actors and private citizens. It might be time to extract my cash for a variety of reasons, especially as tensions continue to escalate. As I think everybody expects them to do so. We will probably get through the election without too much escalation from the Chinese. Maybe not though. But I've read different kind of takes on this. It could be that tensions escalate even more before the election, or they kind of just stay status quo until we get through that November election. We shall see. I think my gut on this is likely that with the Chinese, particularly just because of their ties to our political leaders, we probably will get through the election without escalating tensions. I might eat my words, of course, but that's just my take right now. So what I'm going to do to figure out if what I'm saying is crazy talk is I'm going to take one of these cities where we have this kind of increase in foreign investment, do a deep dive into the county records and look at what these sales might from this past month, if they included any foreign-owned properties. So this is just a theory right now, but based on anecdotal information and based on the fact that we're seeing that pullback as well in Chinese spending due to their problems over there, and their property problems, it might be that there's some kind of margin calls happening for folks that are living here, that are, that have businesses back home. Who knows? But I have a feeling that some of this activity might be as a result of foreign investors deciding that this might be the best time to pull that money out. But I think lots of folks are going to be surprised with that upside in these home sales, but we shall see. And again, this is a temporary blip in many ways when we talk about inflation, for instance. It's just going to go up and down as these types of things occur. And we've seen consumer sentiment improve. Additionally, we've seen builder sentiment improve. We got that out earlier this week, and I think that threw a lot of people a curveball. But here's the thing. Any activity at all is going to improve that builder sentiment. And the narrative that we're living on right now is soft landing. The mania that we're all experiencing right now is Nvidia is going to the moon. We're all, it really is kind of bizarre that people think AI is going to they're putting all this money into it. What it's going to do is take away jobs more than likely. Now, we may all figure out different jobs to get that, that's how these things go. But it's just kind of ironic that, everybody's in a complete mania over Nvidia. And the fact of the matter is it's likely going to lead to job losses and reduced opportunities for our kids in the future. But that's where we are today. So builder sentiment, not shocking. It came up to a whopping 51, guys. Okay, that's 50 is where they kind of say, at least it's not terrible. And so I suspect that even, I was just reading a Zellman report, and they're already talking about March. Absorptions are the rate of sales has decelerated already in the Western markets. So I think we might see a gangbuster month on February and then kind of pulling back again in March. And so we have to wait and see here, but nothing has changed from my perspective of what will happen, or the path ahead. So we have to take this news in stride and that's really why I do this show, is to give you some context for all this information because of typical things like seasonal patterns. This is the spring selling season. People do have to transact for death, divorce, default, the DOD who moves them around. And so we are going to have transactions. The question will be, is this a real turn in sentiment? Has affordability improved? Not really, guys. And even with those rate moves, we've seen the 10-year kind of tick back up here again. It was sitting right at 4. We're now at 4.2, 4.3. As I'm talking right now, are taping this, so is Jerome Powell. And so we'll see what happens after that. But my contention is that even if rates start to drop, the 10-year, and typically that happens when there is distress, people are going to be too distressed to be able to afford to go out there and turn the housing market around. Okay, so sales, I think up in February. Now, this is my data set is not, we don't know how much it will track. I've looked through it. I feel like with the limited few months that I have, that I'm kind of in line. So, with kind of a plus minus 5% variance for my numbers. This will be a good test this month. And then, of course, several tests in the future. And then just quickly, I also tweeted something out on X Twitter this morning. Mortgage applications came in down. But at the same time that they made that announcement for the weekly applications, and I've talked to you guys about this before, weekly is up and down, but non-seasonally adjusted, they are definitely coming in down. But the MBA, or Mortgage Bankers Association, also published a press release about new home purchase applications going wild in February. So a couple things about that. You say, well, okay, new home purchases in February, you just said you think sales are going to cool in March. I do think they're going to pull back a little bit. I do think February is probably a combination of new home sales and then existing luxury. But the thing about applications are applications. They are not closed contracts. And these folks are still applying for mortgage credit. And what we know is that mortgage credit is at the lowest level since 2012. And that was when they started tracking the series. So a ton of stuff going on, guys. I just want to talk some about this Redfin data to you today. Won't do the full running through of the inventory. I will touch on it briefly at the end. But home prices, just wanted to go over what I was seeing in Redfin. And again, this comes off of county records. There's delays, but there was some movement up. We'll start though with the top 5 decreases in home prices. 20 of my 80 cities had year-over-year price decreases, which means that the other 60 did not. But I believe, as I was saying, that this has to do a lot with the activity and the type of activity out there. And again, this is Redfin, which is a combination of new and existing. What will be very interesting is to see tomorrow when we get existing home sales, whether the National Association of Realtors, NAR, saw existing home prices tick up. That will be very telling indeed. But these new home prices have that higher sticker. But as we talked about last week, that's this price in the survey of construction, and it doesn't really take into account all of the concessions. And we found from Fannie Mae, 57% of comparables did not include concessions as they were supposed to. So we already know that prices are inflated out there. But top cities with year-over-year home price declines, essentially Brattleboro was down there negative 34%. They had some flooding. That probably is why that's going on. Cape May, New Jersey down 20.8%. That's a little interesting. That is definitely a seasonal location. Sevierville, Tennessee. This is very interesting. Down 17.5%. And then Sedona, Arizona, down 11.5%. And also interesting article last week about Sedona where they are considering actually letting people live in their car, provide parking spaces for people who have full-time jobs to live in their car. Guys, what is going on in our country where we think it's an okay thing or we're doing good for society by, letting people park and live in their cars? And I'm not saying if they have nowhere to go, of course I want them to have shelter. But these are the types of things that when people are out there telling you there's going to be a soft landing, we would not need to allow people or give people parking spaces to park in their car so that they can live there and go to work. I mean, that just wouldn't be happening. And then Encinitas, California, down 7.8%. Honorable mention Myrtle Beach because I'll be talking about that probably next week or over the weekend, down negative 5.5%. This is important to me because I was just there and there is so much inventory coming online, so much inventory. So that's concerning. Okay, top cities with year-over-year home price increases per Redfin. Now we've talked about, there's so many series, but this is just the Redfin data, and I will be kind of laying it all side by side again as the results come in later this month. But Portsmouth, New Hampshire, our weird little Portsmouth, up 56.3%. Wexford County, Michigan, up 35.10%. Costa Mesa, California, up 33.30%. And Rosemary Beach, Florida, up 27%. And then my little hometown of Johnson City, Tennessee, up 22.80%. Sales are up here month over month, but price cuts abound. And I was just speaking to a realtor 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, and she was telling me it is dead. So, again, this data is delayed, so it can be very, very hard to have an understanding of what's happening in real time. And that's why I really try to track these cities each week so we can get a sense of the turn. And then the data is noisy, and I am one person, but I am trying, and I feel like I'm getting a stronger foundation underneath me to be able to give you more analysis, more about what trends I'm seeing in these local cities. But it takes time to really get that foundation underneath you. And so I appreciate all of you that have come on this journey with me. I think that we have quite a ways to go, but we have a solid foundation behind us. Okay, so this one I think is important to tell you about. Top cities with year-over-year decrease in home sales. Okay, so this isn't home prices. This is decrease in home sales. Now, when we saw only 29 of my cities had decreases in home sales month over month. This is the spring buying and selling season. This is when everything should be firing on all cylinders. Now, everybody has a little bit of different season. In Florida, that season gets started really early. But in general, this is where all the seasons meet. pretty much. And so this is when we should be definitely seeing things increasing. And I believe, last year, existing home sales, basically from a new and existing home sales, we saw an average increase from January to February of 13.64% increase. So again, seeing that seasonal pattern, which was a little bit, I think, lower last year because people were so depressed last year. They had no hope for the housing market. And what I saw is that, we essentially saw sales come in just about 3% higher than what it was month over month last year. Okay, so, but we're talking about decreases in home sales. Cape May, New Jersey, down 80%. Winter Garden, Florida, down 29.10%. Bozeman, Montana, down 27.9%. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, down 25.5%. And so are their home prices. Portland, Oregon, down 24.4%. Destin, Florida, down 23.3%. Pembroke Pines, Florida, that's, some of you may remember I did a site visit there, down 17%. Tampa, Florida, down 15%. Miami, Florida, down 15%. West Palm Beach, Florida, down 11.9%. Now, guys, this is spring selling season. This is Florida's high season. And last year was pretty abysmal in terms of sales. So we should not be seeing these decreases in year over year home sales for Florida, but we are. Now, this is where I think things get very interesting. Okay, and why I want to do a deep dive on California. Because yes, I guarantee you a lot of it has to do with the Nvidia mania, but I think something else is going on. We shall see. This is top cities with year-over-year increases in home sales. Encinitas, California, 64.3%. And I should mention, home sales there last year were horrible. So again, we're coming off lows, but it's still meaningful. Carlsbad, California, down 59.3%. Costa Mesa, California, up, sorry, up 51.9%. Sedona, Arizona, 47.10%. Palm Springs, California. Do you think maybe they're motivated in Sedona? I don't know if I have to live in my car. Palm Springs, California, 23.8%. San Ramon, California, 33.3%. Salt Lake City, Utah, 29.8%. San Jose, California, 28.2%. And then Hoboken, New Jersey, up 28%. And Rochester, New York, up 26%. So something is going on in California. Now, one thing I do want to mention about Redfin is they will actually change the results as they get in more information. And so it could be that things change a little bit, but I don't know. I think this might be happening. So we'll get more confirmation tomorrow for sure. Okay, and then just quickly, top cities with month over month home sales decrease, January to February. So most sales were up month over month, but 13 cities did have declines. Again, this is the high season. So Cape May, New Jersey had a decline, 60%. Portsmouth, New Hampshire, 47% decline. Rosemary Beach, Florida, 16.67% decline. Hoboken, New Jersey, down 13.5% decline. And we just saw year over year that was up, but month over month that's down. So there is some crazy stuff going on out there. New York down 12.83%. Okay. And then just in terms of, top cities with month over month sales increase January to February. And again, I'll put this in the show notes and hopefully soon I'm going to have this in presentation style for everyone. And I know I've been saying that for a really long time, but I do feel closer. Top cities with month over month home sales increased January to February. Brattleboro, Vermont, small numbers, but big increase of 200%. Destin, Florida, 73.68% month over month. Again, smaller numbers, but still, that's a lot of activity for Destin. Seattle, Washington, 61.42%. Sevierville, Tennessee, 52.38%. This is interesting. Denver, Colorado, 49.7%. Johnson City, Tennessee, 48.15%. Salt Lake City, Utah, 46.36%. And Carlsbad, California, 45.76%. And El Cajon at 45.24%. Okay, now I'm going to quickly breeze over just inventory this week. Not going to be talking about rent or anything else. Hope to do another show at the end of the week, but hope is not a strategy. I will do my best, but there's just been a lot of surprises, which happens when you move. Okay, so listings for sale increased 4.30% week over week. Now, you guys may be like, oh, that's no big deal, because everybody's now talking about inventory increasing. You guys have listened to me for over a year talking about the places where it was increasing before everybody else talked about increasing inventory. But this is still big numbers. And so, the shocks may still be yet to come. So week over week, 4.3% increase, 7.61% month over month increase, and 19.13% year over year in the cities that I track. Compared to the 29-week average, inventory was up 6.6%. And last year, just so everybody knows, so that when we're looking at month over month numbers here, okay, so February to March, same week February, same week March, and that would be basically, the first week of February compared to the first week of March. And what I can tell you is that last year, between February and March, inventory decreased by 2.99%. And so what we're seeing month over month is a 7.61% increase. So I think things are different. And so just going to give you a couple stats here. Top cities with a large percent increase in inventory week over week. This is from March 3rd to March 10th. San Ramon, California, 33.65%. Phoenix, Arizona, 18.34%. Denver, Colorado, 15.62%. And Scottsdale, Arizona, 12.01%. And Atlanta, Georgia, 10.24%. Now, in the Substack, I'm going to be pasting a full state summary that shows you by state week over week inventory increases, month over month or changes, month over month inventory changes, and year over year inventory changes. So that will be in the Substack this week for folks. So I think that gives a great view. So quickly, just in terms of top cities with largest percent increase in inventory month over month in that week, we've got San Ramon at 43.3%, Denver, Colorado at 24.07%, Rosemary Beach, Florida at 23.08%, Phoenix, Arizona at 18.94%, and San Jose, California at 15.82%. And Denver this week was really the winner in terms of that month over month, week over week inventory increase. So a lot of inventory coming online in Denver. Okay, guys, so a lot going on. I think that we may get a little surprise, or I might get a little surprise if my cities are just way off the mark. But based on historical comparison, I don't look that far off. So it is going to be very interesting to see existing home sales tomorrow, and then we get new home sales on the 25th. And so we have to look at those together. I don't think that existing is going to come in super hot. I think new home sales are going to come in hotter than many are thinking. So I'm going to do a little work and just see what other economists are estimating out there, because it'll be very interesting. But we get existing home sales tomorrow. If I hope to do a show immediately following when I have both of them, which will be on the 25th, and we can dive into it. And if my cities were way off, that'll be crazy. If they weren't, we'll have good projections on a go forward basis, in my opinion. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. A lot going on. Again, we can talk about sales increasing. We can even talk about builder sentiment increasing. They're going to be happy if they can push this inventory. That does not change what's ahead. And everyone is living on narrative right now. We are seeing consumer distress all over the place. We are seeing layoffs every single day. We are seeing credit card debt exploding. We're seeing auto delinquencies. We're seeing credit card delinquencies. We now have, sorry, I forgot to mention this. We've seen this chart on X Twitter where people are paying more in interest expense now for non-mortgage items than mortgage. This is, at least in my review, the first time in history. And so we are in distress, whether mainstream media, FinTwit, or anyone else wants to believe it or not. And so that is the path ahead. So sorry, there was a big wasp that just flew by me. Yeah. Okay. Living out on a farm every day is an interesting day, but I love it. So thanks so much for joining me. If you need to reach me, you can reach out on Twitter at M3_Melody, at Substack, M3 Melody Substack, which I'll post in the show notes. And then, of course, here on YouTube, leave me a comment. Super behind in comments, but give me a couple weeks. I'll get caught up. All right, guys, I hope you're having a really good week. It's really nice weather here in Tennessee today, finally, thankfully. I hope it is where you are. And thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks again.